Hello, today we're looking at the vintage Synth Lab VCF-74 filter. Eric of Vintage Synth Labs has actually spent over 20 years repairing and restoring vintage analog equipment. And Eric told me that once upon a time he had an extremely broken synth, and it was a Korg Minikorg 700s. And the more that he played around with the Korg 700s, the more he was intrigued by the filter that was in it. In Eric's words, I'd never really heard a filter sound or react like this. So it's an interesting one. This is, I should say, not necessarily a clone. It explores some of the same interesting idiosyncrasies of that design, but it's kind of its own thing as well. Eric says, and I agree, that the best way of describing it is just musical. It's very warm. It has a natural kind of compression and sort of combined with a very sinusoidal sound, for want of a better term. It just warms and rounds almost everything that comes into it. It just literally sounds vintage, and it makes any square wave kind of round off, warm up and funk up. So if you look at the panel, you'll see a high pass and a low pass. So the idea is that it's a cascaded kind of dual filter. You have a high pass feeding into a low pass. You can't change that. They'll always feed into one another. But of course, you can put the high pass at the bottom and turn its resonance off to sort of take its influence out. You have separate controls for resonance, and we have CV inputs to control the amount of resonance, which is nice. And then we've got two CV inputs adjacent to those which control the filters themselves independently, the high pass and the low pass. And we've got two neato little attenuators, so we can attenuate how much we are modulating the filters. In the middle is a boost switch. This boosts the signal. Particularly, the switch boosts by about 5 dB the output of the high pass as it feeds into the low pass. And this just adds more warmth and more kind of drive and more of that sexy kind of character. And then all that's left is an input and an output. And the inputs and the output have dials, because the filter reacts in strange ways to dynamics, to different dynamics. So do play with the input level. Don't just put it up on full experiment. So let's funk some stuff up. Before we do anything too wacky, let's try a slightly more full-on sound. 3 oscillators, Dixie, 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 feeding into it. So you can kind of hear a 3 oscillator thing going through. Now, I'm going to change the levels a little, turn it down, and then we'll hear what it sounds like if we drive it a little harder. And I'll turn off the boost. With more resonance. So you can hear the kind of pretty resonance, like the harmonics being picked out. And it begins to get quite underworld, res, cowgirl. But I hope you can hear this kind of just like sort of warm. It does just sound vintage. I know that's a stupidly obvious thing to say given the name of the company, but good name, mate. although with more drive. And then even more drive. It kind of crunches and fuzzes up. And then with high pass, that's nice. So let's CV modulate that. And then let's modulate the low pass. Ciao. And then let's try the boost. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Bass. Let me just quickly play with a square wave just so you can kind of hear that. Wow. I mean, that's... And then high pass. Oh yeah. So this is nice. Here, by choosing the relationship between the high and the low pass with a little resonance, you get a kind of band pass, obviously, because it's a high pass being low pass. That creates band pass. But of course, with a little resonance, you also get a kind of vocal sound, which was always a favorite trick on the MS-20. On here, you can do that. It's just got a different character. So this is then a good time to tell you about another characteristic of this design. So something that Eric was saying, he said the filter is quick. As in, when I was breadboarding this, I realized that filter modulation, you know, CV input sent to kind of modulate the cutoff, that the circuit reacts very, very fast with very little slewing. So if you're at all interested in exploring a frequency modulation of analog filters, you're in a good place. So in a slightly more fruitalicious patch, we're going to FM modulate the VCF-74. So what I'm doing is using a planar to control the high pass, low pass, and the resonance. The X vector of planar is, or is that Y? Y is resonance, and X is the filter itself. Cool thing about the planar is that you can blend the planarity with control voltages, which is what I'm doing here. I can basically control a filter. Lovely. And it obviously self-resonates and becomes a pretty sine wave. But what I'm doing is using the shapeshifter into this CV input on the planar, and that will blend in audio rate modulation. To hear how the filter picks out the sort of harmonics. You don't need a planar to do this, by the way. So obviously you could just put the modulation in to the filter and use the knob on the filter itself. And if I adjust the shapeshifter, God damn, son. God damn, son. Right. Let's see what this interesting little chicken does on audio, as in a sample of some kind. I've got a drum break, which I will let you hear the dry version of. That was the dry version. So let's run that through this, shall we? And see and hear what that sounds like. Oh. So we have to have the input very, very low before you hear distortion. Now let's high pass it with resonance. And then low pass. We're Fatboy Slim, mate. Let's get the filter to animate while we're playing the drums. So I'm going to split off the signal and use a maths to create an envelope follower for us. So here's the signal back. And then my envelope followed version. Ow! It's pretty nuts. And then let's not let that signal go to waste. I'm gonna use the, oh hell, I lost my cable. I got my cable back. I'm gonna split the output so that we can send it equally to the high pass and the low pass, maintaining that relationship. Now it's a band pass. Oh, you dirty little monkey. Badass. Well done. An extremely rad thing that we can do, because we have an independent high pass and low pass, which are in series, therefore making a band pass, is control both that high pass and low pass with the same control voltage. What you're doing is making a bandpass filter that you can obviously move up and down the spectrum. And if you add resonance, it's a great way of making a kind of vocal, slightly formant filter kind of sound. Which this does in a kind of soft way, but with a beautiful kind of sort of old crust to it. And then if you adjust the interval, it's nice. You obviously end up with a relationship between the two filters that you can then shift up and down the frequency spectrum. Wow. Ace. Et voila. That is the VCF-74. So I hope you get a sense of what makes this interesting. Not an MS-20, kind of its own thing. It's a different filter to what you might be used to, and everything that kind of goes into it just seems to take on this fulsome kind of like girth and warmth, and it breaks up and kind of purrs in interesting ways. And it's more subtle than the MS-20. It doesn't rip your head off. It kind of just adds this sort of brilliant kind of fuzz, warmth and fullness to things. And it's got this kind of subtle vocal thing that can be done with the bandpass. Yeah, just this unique voice. It's a unique sounding thing. And I applaud Eric and the crew from VSL for bringing it to Eurorack, because it's not a flavour that there are many, if any, other versions of. So a unique voice, an interesting module. So I hope you will check it out for yourself. Thanks.